Because the fossil implements of man are found to become more rough and uncouth, as geology penetrates deeper into the bowels of the earth. It seems a proof to science that the closer we come to the origin of man, the more savage and brute-like he must be. Strange logic! Does the finding of the remains in the cave of Devon prove that there were no contemporary races then who were highly civilized, when the present population of the earth have disappeared and some archaeologist belonging to the coming race of the distant future shall excavate the domestic implements of one of our Indian or Andaman island tribes? Will he be justified in concluding that mankind in the 19th century was just emerging from the Stone Age? It has lately been the fashion to speak of the untenable conceptions of an uncultivated past, as though it were possible to hide behind an epigram the intellectual quarries out of which the reputations of so many modern philosophers have been carved. Just as Tyndall is ever ready to disparage ancient philosophers for a dressing up of whose ideas more than one distinguished scientist has derived honor and credit, so the geologists seem more and more inclined to take for granted that all of the archaic races were contemporaneously in a state of dense barbarism, but not all of our best authorities agree in this opinion. Some of the most eminent maintain exactly the reverse. Max Muller, for instance, says many things are still unintelligible to us, and the hieroglyphic language of antiquity records but half of the mind's unconscious intentions. Yet more and more the image of man, in whatever clime we meet him, rises before us noble and pure from the very beginning. Even his errors we learn to understand, even his dreams we begin to interpret as far as we can trace back the footsteps of man. Even on the lowest strata of history we see the divine gift of a sound and sober intellect belonging to him from the very first, and the idea of a humanity emerging slowly from the depths of an animal brutality can never be maintained again. As it is claimed to be unphilosophical to inquire into the first causes, scientists now occupy themselves with considering their physical effects. The field of scientific investigation is therefore bounded by physical nature. When once its limits are reached, inquiry must stop and their work be recommenced. With all due respect to our learned men, they are like the squirrel upon its revolving wheel, for they are doomed to turn their matter over and over. Science is a mighty potency, and it is not for us pygmies to question her. But the scientists are not themselves science embodied any more than the men of our planet are the planet itself. We have neither the right to demand nor power to compel our modern-day philosopher to accept without challenge a geographical description of the dark side of the moon. But if in some lunar cataclysm one of her inhabitants should be hurled thence into the attraction of our atmosphere, and land safe and sound at Dr. Carpenter's door, he would be indictable as recreant to professional duty if he should fail to set the physical problem at rest. For a man of science to refuse an opportunity to investigate any new phenomenon, whether it comes to him in the shape of a man from the moon or a ghost from the Eddy homestead, is alike reprehensible. Whether arrived at by the method of Aristotle or that of Plato, we need not stop to inquire, but it is a fact that both the inner and outer natures of man are claimed to have been thoroughly understood by the ancient anthropologists. Notwithstanding the superficial hypotheses of geologists, we are beginning to have almost daily proofs in corroboration of the assertions of those philosophers. They divided the interminable periods of human existence on this planet into cycles, during each of which mankind gradually reached the culminating point of the highest civilization and gradually relapsed into abject barbarism. To what eminence the race in its progress had several times arrived may be feebly surmised by the wonderful monuments of old still visible and the descriptions given by Herodotus of other marvels of which no traces now remain. Even in his days, the gigantic structures of many pyramids and world-famous temples were but masses of ruins, scattered by the unrelenting hand of time. They are described by the father of history as these venerable witnesses of the long bygone glory of departed ancestors. He shrinks from speaking of divine things and gives to posterity but an imperfect description, from hearsay, of some marvelous subterranean chambers of the labyrinth, where lay and now lie concealed the sacred remains of the king Initiate. We can judge, moreover, of the lofty civilization reached in some periods of antiquity by the historical descriptions of the ages of the Ptolemies. Yet in that epoch the arts and sciences were considered to be degenerating, and the secret of a number of the former had been already lost. In the recent excavations of Mariette Bay, at the foot of the pyramids, statues of wood and other relics have been exhumed, which show that long before the period of the first dynasties, the Egyptians had attained to a refinement and perfection which is calculated to excite the wonder of even the most ardent